Welcome back. It's Tuesday, February 21st, and from buyouts to signings to All-Star Weekend, we're back with some NBA news to cover on today's show. Of course, I'm joined by the biggest Westbrook fan in the world, the biggest Paul George fan in the world, my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you feeling today?
I feel great. It's a great day to be a Westbrook and Paul George fan. Happy Monday, everybody. Tuesday, I'm sorry.
Oh, right. But this is your early reminder that if you do enjoy what you're seeing or hearing, or both, go ahead and support us down below. Hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and hit the like button. You guys have been killing it as of late. The views have been going up. We've been getting a lot of new viewers. So if you do like what you hear, go ahead and support us down below. But without further ado, I'm one of your hosts, Owen Stiftar. Let's get into some of the news. First things first, we got to start with the biggest domino that fell over this past weekend, and that is Russell Westbrook. After a trade with the Lakers and a buyout from the Jazz, he plans to sign with the Los Angeles Clippers. What are your initial thoughts? We've had a couple days to think about this, about Russell Westbrook.
I really like this move because at first I originally saw a report, I want to say Friday or Saturday night, that said that he was choosing between Chicago and Washington, and I was really confused. But I guess they said his agents were really pushing to get him out of LA for a fresh start. And I mean, I kind of agreed with that, but I just kind of felt like, if he went to one of those teams, it would kind of prove this narrative around him that he's more of a stat chaser than a winner. I like that he goes here with a former teammate in Paul George. Tyronn Lue's a really good coach, and I was telling somebody the other day, the Clippers they're really well coached in every aspect of the game to let Russ come onto the team and ruin them.
Yes.
I don't think that Russ can get on this team and make them any worse than what they are now, and they're already a really good team. They're just, I don't know, they're just better than the Lakers. Put it simply.
Right. No, better constructed as well. Tyronn Lue, he's dealt with multiple stars his whole career with Cleveland and then LA with the 2 stars there. But I would have to ask you, he's returning, or he's staying home technically, just playing for the team he probably doesn't want to growing up, or didn't want to growing up. But we both had the Clippers as probably title favorites. Mm-hmm. That might be a hot take with how Boston and Milwaukee and Denver are playing. But I think we both believe that the Clippers are title favorites this season. Do you think this move helps or hurt them more? Because you did mention that you don't think it can make them any worse. But don't you think maybe it could take them out of title contention if Russ, if they're just going to sag off of Russ like they did in LA?
I don't believe so because, like I said before, when you look at the Clippers roster, they do have like Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann, Kawhi and Paul George themselves can shoot. Bones Highland off the bench, Eric Gordon. The team has a lot more shooters than the Lakers had when he was there. And they said the reason he picked the Clippers in the first place is because they gave him a clear and defined role, which the other teams weren't necessarily doing. And I think at this point in Russ's career, he's looking more so to help out in specific roles than to be that guy, and he knows that now. I believe they said that they want him to be a playmaker, rebound at the guard position, and really push the pace. And those are things that Russ still does very well, despite maybe shooting badly from the field, I guess. So.
Yeah, I mean, as we know, he's reuniting with Paul George. Paul George has been a big fan of this. I do want to say I'm very interested to see if they're going to keep him in the starting lineup or have him come off the bench, as he's been very successful this year and leading the 6th Man of the Year race. It'll be interesting to see. I think he'll be a starter, most likely, especially because you can throw Norman Powell or whoever at the 2. Or is Norman even there anymore?
Yeah, Norman's still
okay,
there.
Yeah,
Robert Covington. I forget about all
you could throw a bunch of people there because they have a lot of depth and a lot of versatility. You could throw whoever at the 2 guard as long as they can shoot. But Paul George, Kawhi, expect them to, I guess, take a step up.
Right.
But Kevin Love, he was the second biggest domino to fall after a buyout with the Cavaliers. He signed with the Miami Heat. My biggest question here is, we know Kevin Love, he's probably a Hall of Famer, right, in the game of basketball. He's been great for many years. He's slowing down, rightfully so with his age. But in Miami, the thing is they want you to buy in. They have specific goals. We always hear stories that, PJ Tucker, when he was there, he said Pat Riley wants you at a certain body fat percentage. He wants you to be in this shape, and he wants to be able to condition in this certain time. So there's a lot of, I guess you have to buy in to be a good Miami Heat player. Do you think Kevin Love can buy in? Do you think he's going to buy in on the defensive end, as he's been a liability there? And because in Cleveland, the reason why he wasn't playing in the playoffs last year when he was getting picked on in the play-in against the Hawks. Do you think he can buy into the system, give effort on the defensive end, and play meaningful minutes when it comes down to big games?
I don't think his effort has really been something on the defensive end. It's more so he just can't play defense.
Yeah, true.
So I think when he was with Cleveland, I think that I don't think it was his mindset to really go out there and just let his guy drop 15 on him in 5 minutes. I think it's just more so he doesn't have the lateral quickness to contend with the fours that he'll be guarding, and he's too small to play 5 against the taller guys. But with everything else, I think he can buy in with what the Heat have. He's never had a problem, conditioning, keeping himself in tip-top shape, especially after transforming his body once he went from those early seasons in Minnesota and kept getting hurt. He like we talked about, he does bring that shooting to the Heat, but as far as getting meaningful play minutes in the playoffs, I don't necessarily see it. I think it would, more so maybe depend on who they play, but there aren't a lot of teams that he will be able to get good minutes against, because like you said, and just to play in game last year, he couldn't even play. And he was one of our best shooters, and he couldn't even play in the fourth quarter.
He was played off the court.
Yeah, he couldn't he couldn't defend, and that translated until this season, along with the fact that he's only shooting like 32% from three. So
we see it with a lot of players, a lot of free agents. A change of scenery can be everything for a player. I mean, he loved the city of Cleveland. He's meant a lot. Pretty much any stadium you go to, if you see a Cavs jersey, most times it's going to be a Kevin Love jersey, from the last couple years. He's meant a lot to the Cavaliers. He's going to probably get his jersey retired with the Cavs, even though that's questionable. Kevin Love, he meant a lot to Cleveland, but he was here for the last couple years, and I think his role kind of got stale. Maybe he goes to Miami and he has more freedom if he comes off the bench, or maybe they run lineups where it's just him and Jimmy, where we know Jimmy's not a regular season player. So maybe he lets Kevin Love go to work in the post or do whatever. Maybe he could show some flashes of his Minnesota self in early Cleveland days. But it will be interesting to see, because he is a liability on the defensive end, to see if he can play in the postseason. But I will say the fit of Jimmy and Bam around him in that front court, you need defense around Kevin Love. Jimmy and Bam do that, as Bam is a leader in the decoy.
Yeah.
Patrick Beverley, he returns home. He signs with the Chicago Bulls after a buyout after a trade from the Lakers, right? And
it was traded.
Yeah, okay. Regardless, he was with the Lakers, as we know. He signs with the Bulls after being a free agent. And I just want to throw this quote out there, because I saw him say this quote on his thoughts about going to Chicago. He says, "I'm from Chicago. I bleed Chicago. I really think I can help the city. I think I can save the city." What I hope he means, like, save the city as far as the community, because as far as basketball, this isn't high school where he was dropping 35 in high school. Well, fun fact, if you guys didn't know that, Pat Bev was that guy in high school. But as far as the NBA, Pat Bev isn't that guy. He could be a good starter for them, have Caruso come off the bench. I mean, that's a lot of defense there. Maybe if someone goes down, they can run lineups of Caruso, Pat Bev. But what are your initial thoughts of Pat Bev to Chicago? He returns home.
Yeah, when I first heard that quote, I thought Michael Jordan came out of retirement or something. But Pat Bev, I honestly, I don't see him saving the Bulls at all. Like you said, the Bulls are kind of just they have a lot of dysfunctional things happening right now. And I think, even Zach LaVine's play, he's their max contract guy, and he hasn't really played like a max contract player in a meaningful minutes this year. They probably got to get a new coach. They just kind of need a rehaul all,
right,
all at once. And Pat Bev doesn't solve any of the problems that they have right now. I guess maybe defense was their problem, but what is Pat Bev giving you on offense that's going to help? Nothing. I just don't really see this giving them that extra play-in push They still might make it, but I don't think it'll be any, Pat Bev, what kind of fell out the rotation in LA. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, just rebuild kind of, after Tom Thibodeau left Chicago, it kind of like threw off their rebuild because they brought in Jim Boylan, and he was probably the worst head coach of all time. So that delayed their rebuild. And then they bring in Jim Donovan, or not Jim Donovan, Billy Donovan,
yep.
Former Florida coach. He was brought in from OKC to, because he's had a knack in his career to develop young talent. Chicago, they wanted to continue this kind of rebuild but still compete at the same time. And though Ayo Dosunmu's been great, I mean, the reason why he brought Billy Donovan in is to rebuild young talent and have a younger team. They're trying to compete while they have a head coach that's known for rebuilding young talent. It's just a mess in Chicago. They have a lot of good pieces.
Yeah.
Caruso, Zach LaVine, DeRozan, Vucevic, I guess. But they're a mess right now.
Yeah.
Next up, we're going to make this one quick. Myers Leonard agrees to a 10-day deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. If you guys didn't know, after saying some slurs on his Twitch stream, I believe in 2021 or 2020, he's basically been blackballed from the league. He's been out of the league ever since. Any chance, I guess initial thoughts on this signing for the Bucks, if it means anything, and do you think he gets signed for the rest of the year? Any chance that happens?
No, I'd be surprised if he even gets in there. He signed a 10-day yesterday, I believe, and we don't even have games until Thursday. So, I'd be surprised if he really gets any minutes. And if he does get signed for the rest of the season, it's nothing more than possibly just fill out their roster. Let somebody else go who they didn't want, but I don't think this doesn't make or break Milwaukee's roster.
Right, and I mean we know Giannis is probably going to be out for a couple weeks, so maybe he can step in and play 4 or 5 minutes a night. Yeah. But I guess usually on 10-day contracts you get 4 or 5 games in there, at least 3. But he's probably only going to get 1 or 2, if that, and he's only going to get 5 or so minutes. So I don't really see why they would sign him. But Myers Leonard's back in the NBA. Moving over to Saturday night, this past Saturday, where we had these skills challenges. I'm just going to come out and say this now. It was boring. From my opinion, the skills challenge alone. That first event, super boring. Jordan Clarkson didn't care. The whole Jazz team that you saw actually won the competition. They seem to not care at all the whole time, besides Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
The Antetokounmpo bros with Drew Holiday. We got to stop with that too.
Yeah.
The Antetokounmpos, they're just not good NBA players. Compared to the rest of the talent that we have. And Drew Holiday's good. He was an all-star, but they obviously had that group there because they were all 3 brothers. And who's the other? The rookies.
Yeah.
The rookies they had their flashes, and I like the rookies being in this challenge as a team.
Yeah.
But the Jazz, they didn't care. It just overall that whole thing was very boring to me. And my quick thoughts were just that I believe we should revert back to the old system just from a couple years ago, where you have 4 bigs and 4 guards, and they go head-to-head in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. As far as that this was pretty boring, like you said, Jordan Clarkson. I mean, I don't think he put any effort forward. The rookies hit 1 shot during the shooting challenge, and
right.
Antetokounmpo's only hit 2, and Drew Holiday hit both of those. And like you said, the Antetokounmpos, they needed to go after last year. I don't know why you bring them back again. It really didn't make sense to me. I mean, the rookie, I like the idea of having the rookies if you're going to do a team format of the skills challenge, because the rookies are going to go hard no matter what. I mean, even Walker Kessler on the Jazz tried. It's just kind of trying to find people to bring in around that, which you can't really do especially because they have to compete in a team. So like you said, I think they should go back to the bigs versus guard. Bring back that kind of 1v1 matchup to really because I mean it'd make the players feel a lot better if they had 1 trophy for
right. And I also makes it more fun in that way. I think if you're just dribbling, laying it up, and shooting a half-court shot, if we're talking about maybe getting more of the big time stars back into these competitions, if that's not gonna most times it's not gonna cause an injury for them to dribble through some cones and to lay the ball up and shoot a 3-pointer, and I guess make a pass too. But if we want to get big-time stars back in the game, we should bring a competition like that back. Because at least we used to have, Cat, and he's a mid-tier star, and, he's actually kind of an all-star legend now that I think about it. He won that competition, and then last year he won the 3-point. or was it 2 years ago?
Might have been 2 years ago.
It was back-to-back years where he won those competitions. But regardless, I mean, we at first we didn't think it was fair when we had guards versus bigs, but bigs started to win the competition a lot. So I don't know. I thought it was very boring.
I mean, you even had old Dwayne Wade used to do them. He used to stay like if he only did one event during All-Star Weekend, it was the skills challenge. So yeah.
Right. Then moving over, probably the saving grace of the night, or at least at the time, we had the 3-point contest. And Damian Lillard, he took home the crown against Halliburton and Buddy Hield in the finals. But other than Kevin Huerter in this competition, to me, this kind of went just as expected.
Yeah. Everybody knew that Julius Randle shouldn't have been in a 3-point contest.
He was through in.
I could have got more than Julius Randle with a blindfold on. Maybe the same thing goes for some of the other players, but Tyrese. I thought Tyrese was going to win it after that first round because I was like, there's no way he drops off from 31 to 19 or 20, but he did. Damian Lillard's the most consistent shooter. He's been in the 3-point contest before, which I completely forgot about when I was picking my selections on Thursday. Buddy Hield put up a good fight, but there isn't really much to say for this one other than congrats to Dame for getting one.
Right, and I mean, I am surprised Clay, maybe he declined the offer to join the competition, but I'm surprised someone like Clay wasn't in it. Even if he's having a down year for shooting, he's still better than most of the guys on this list, or at least the people that competed, especially in a competition like this where you're not moving.
Right,
so,
I might be Cleveland biased, but I mean, even like Darius Garland or something like
right.
that. I mean, better than some of these guys. I mean, I know Donovan Mitchell declined an invite to it, but I mean, there some of these guys, they were even saying it on the broadcast. They've been in slumps for like a month or two. Coming into the 3-point contest.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Huerter started the year shooting he was close to 55% from three. He's come back down to earth. He's only at 38 now, and that's in the span of a month. So he's slowed down, and maybe that's he kind of showed his true colors here at the All-Star 3-point shootout. But regardless, I think it went just as expected.
Yeah.
But moving over to probably the highlight of Saturday night, we had the dunk contest. I guess the biggest question here, and I've seen this question circulating around on different shows and all that. In your opinion, do you think Mac McClung saved the dunk contest?
Yeah, I'd say yeah, because the one last year had people ready to get rid of the dunk contest entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Mac McClung wins this, says he's going to be back next year. And now you're kind of like, okay, now who are we going to get against him? Like, we want to see more. And I don't know if you saw the video of one of the dunks he didn't do in a dunk contest, but man, he was holding back a lot of things that he could have. He probably just went with the easiest ones he figured for this. And I mean, even Trey Murphy didn't do bad either. I mean, KJ Martin, he had a lot of good ideas. It's just he missed them on a first try, so he wanted to get some type of points for him, but. Yeah, my original pick, Jericho Sims. Wow, what a disappointment.
Don't ever let him come back to the dunk contest.
Yeah, don't let him near All-Star Weekend.
All he did was put his elbow on the rim every single dunk, and he thought he was going to win.
Yeah, it was pretty tough to watch.
I do want to say this. I can't do that, right? I want to sound like a hater, but I can't do that. I can't go up there and put my elbow on the rim, jump above the rim. But
it's the NBA dunk contest.
It's the NBA dunk contest. This is where the top athletes are supposed to show us some crazy athleticism and dunks we haven't seen, especially not consecutively. He did the same dunk 2 times in a row.
Yeah, they should have had Shaedon Sharpe. They should have kept him in it, or he should have stayed in it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It is, for Mac McClung, it is one of the best performances we've seen in recent years, and he did bring some new variations of dunks. There's dunks that you're even mentioning that I didn't see, so I don't know. I think that him declaring he's back for next year is huge for the dunk contest. Because, hey, maybe that opens up for Ja or Zion. I know a lot of people were asking Ja and Zion, hey, do you think you could beat Mac McClung? And they said, of course they could. But do you think there's any chance we get a bigger star like Ja or Zion along with Mac McClung next year?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they asked Zion. I don't think he shut it down off the bat. I think he kind of left the door open.
Yeah.
Ja, on the other hand, he said no. He's been saying been saying no since his rookie year. And I think it'll be hard to kind of get a top star again, just because Trey Murphy's last dunk was a dunk. Paul George did it in the game. And it's one that Vince Carter did when he won the dunk contest. And at the time, those dunks were like, wow. But, he did it, and he really didn't even get a crowd reaction. So, it'll be hard to get those top stars just because some of them probably lack the creativity needed. Like, Mac McClung really came out and knew what he was going to do. Even Trey Murphy, the marketing he was doing for his dunks, having Jose Alvarado come out, asking the judges.
That was great. That was actually super creative.
Yeah, it's like, it takes guys like that, and I don't think, Ja is more of a flashy in-game dunker. Even in the All-Star game, he did a couple of 360s and reverses, but I think that's the most. He tried to do a East Bay or a between the legs dunk, but I think it's just in a dunk contest, you need creativity, something that gets the crowd hyped before and after the dunk. Something they look at the replay and they're like, wow. And I don't know, sometimes people just don't feel like they have that in them.
Right. So. And I've seen, I guess another question I'll throw out there. It sounds silly, and I think it's just a level of ignorance, but Stephen A. Smith came out recently and he said that LeBron ruined the dunk contest. And that's just because LeBron, we know, generational athlete, freak of nature. He can jump out of the gym. Maybe not like Mac McClung, but he still... It's very surprising he never did a dunk contest, and many are blaming him for, I guess, getting stars to, swerve away from participating in the dunk contest. Do you think it's LeBron's fault, or do you think it's just smart for some of these bigger guys to not risk chance of injury?
I don't think it's LeBron's fault because LeBron's always been more of an in-game dunker.
There's a difference.
Yeah, there really is a difference. LeBron's an in-game dunker. He's not a dunk contest dunker. And I think, like I said before, it's really just now at the point where it's like, what can you do that people haven't seen, or can you put your own twist on it? Because
cartwheel into a backflip.
I mean, even years after, when LeBron was declining the dunk contest, there were still guys like Andre Iguodala, Jason Richardson, Dwight Howard, Nate Robinson. DeMar DeRozan. Like, these are Terrence Ross, guys who had a name in the league who were still doing a dunk contest, and it wasn't until maybe 2-3 years ago where they kind of stopped. After Aaron Gordon got robbed, they kind of figured, why should we do it if the dunks that we think should win aren't going to win? So
yeah, I mean, that's really all we have. The dunk contest was the savior in the night. Shout out to Mac McClung. I mean, he made it interesting. I was actually contemplating going to bed before the the dunk contest, but he definitely came out. He showed us, he kept us all watching. And those are the moments that we're going to remember for the foreseeable future. But moving over to the new All-Star Draft format, as you see on your screen, it's the capturing the moment of when Giannis was trying to draft Ja Morant from the reserves, when Ja Morant was a starter. But I just want to ask your thoughts about it. Now that we've seen the new playground style of draft format, with the players standing behind them. What are your quick thoughts about it?
It was a little weird.
Yeah,
I think,
especially starting with the reserves.
Yeah, I mean, I think they said they wanted to try and avoid somebody going last, but I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. went last and Lowry went last for the starters, and it was weird both times, especially because other than when LeBron got Kyrie, it kind of felt like the captains weren't even like they were kind of doing it with the thought of the reserves and the starters not behind them. It kind of felt like they, were kind of just drafting off a piece of paper like they were still on TV. But I don't know what to think about it. It was weird. I'll probably have to see it one more time, maybe next year or,
Right. And I think they will bring it back because the COVID's officially done, I guess. But, I mean, you kind of touched on it. It didn't go as expected for me. I thought LeBron was going to take Luka first or Jokic, but he goes out and takes Embiid. I just, from start to finish, aside from Jrue Holiday, but even Jrue Holiday going second to Giannis, the whole draft it didn't go as expected, at least I would think. There was a lot of surprises, Anthony Edwards being the first guy off the bench for LeBron. Yeah. I didn't see that coming. But I mean, in a way, I think I prefer the old Zoom format when they had the TV show where they had Shaq, Kenny, and the guys with the two captains on the TV screen. Maybe that's just because all we've known really for the last since 2018. Mm-hmm. But in a way, I think I prefer the old style, especially because they started with the reserves, and like you mentioned, it was awkward both times when someone was picked last anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and I mean, even like when Lowry went last, that was really awkward because here's the hometown guy going, and Jokic got up before they even, LeBron didn't even pick him. It was almost like LeBron was like, well, I mean, he wants to be on the team, so, and Lowry's kind of looking around like, is this even supposed to be going on? So
yeah,
that one was the really awkward one. But yeah, it was
yeah,
kind of tough to watch. And then that between Shaq, Kenny, and
oh yeah,
Chuck's,
I didn't mention that.
They forgot that their mics were on during the draft, so on TV we could hear them.
Yeah, you couldn't hear Ernie for the first 5 minutes of the draft.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And I didn't think that Shaq and them knew that they were on, but it's very surprising for like TNT to have a miscue like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, in all honesty, I kind of forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So, before this draft, I went back and I watched a couple of the ones from years prior, just to refresh my memory. They're always fun to watch. And NBA players must hate Utah. That's something I've come to because, we know that their fans are very questionable with their comments, especially towards the black athletes that we do have. But, like, I was going back and I was watching. So when Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert were together for all those years, every single time they both made it, they always went last or like the last two picks. And then this year with Lauri Markkanen, he was probably the least talented player in the starting lineup. But throughout the years, the Utah players always seem to go last in the starters or the reserves.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe they're just not likable people. But Donovan Mitchell's come to Cleveland and he's been great for us. So I'm not sure what that's about, but
I mean, you kind of forget people are in Utah,
right?
So
right, it's kind of just out there. But then moving on, to the actual game itself, Jason Tatum for Team Giannis, he took home this year's All-Star Game MVP, and there's another question circulating. This game, in recent years with this new format for the Kobe Bryant tribute, where you add 24 points and then you go to that mark. The fourth quarter intensity typically picks up, ever since this rule's been implemented. And this year it seemed like it really wasn't. It seemed like it was just a bunch of sloppy passes, and then John Morant and Donovan Mitchell were coming down and hitting some threes. Do you think this was the worst All-Star game, at least in recent years? There's people thinking that it is the worst in history.
Yeah, I'd probably say this is probably the worst, or maybe I can't remember which year it was, but it was the West blew out the East, and I think it was the year Paul George went crazy.
Yes,
but they lost. That one was pretty bad because it was a blowout from the jump. But this one was really tough to watch because, like you said, like there's also an incentive to win each individual quarter too.
Yes.
It's not like
charities.
Yeah, it's not like you want to keep the score close for the fourth quarter so you can have a reasonable target score. It's you have to win the quarter to go towards the charity of the captain's choosing. And it was like, the first quarter was tied, and it was like, like Luka, they had him on the mic. I know, like, he's barely even getting up across half court. It was just really tough to watch. Team Giannis, he picked the guys that were going to play hard, and that's what they did. Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, they all came out and played like they were supposed to. Like we've seen this game in the past few years. But guys on Team LeBron were kind of just out there, jogging around, getting a light, conditioning, and it was tough to watch.
And I kind of mentioned it earlier that it was kind of surprising to see Luka go so low in the draft, but it was at the same time. My dad had a parlay on the game where he bet if Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, and Luka all hit 15 points. We know Luka is arguably a top 2 player in this world, in the NBA, in the league. He's a top 5 player for sure, in my opinion. But when a guy like Luka, who we know can go out there and score 30-plus a night, he puts up like 4 points in the entire All-Star game where there's no defense. He can pretty much get up any shot he wants. It's very surprising to see like players like that just we know that can dominate, and they just care less. And especially later in the game, where defense does intensify, it wasn't. Players are still blowing by, and I understand the injury risk. But I guess that leads me to my next question. With the injury risk issues that players don't want to get hurt in a meaningless game, especially because both conferences are pretty tight right now, from 1 to 12 or so. But in my opinion, if the competitiveness continues to slow down in these All-Star games, should we find a way, or is there a way to, I guess, go a different way about All-Star Weekend? Just like the NFL did. They went away from the tackle football game to the flag football game, because they understood that the flag football game wasn't tackle football. Should the NBA maybe find a way, or is there a way to go different about All-Star Weekend? Maybe add more money for the charities? What do you think about that?
No, I don't think there's a way to go to change at least just having the All-Star game. Only because the All-Star game's been in place since before there was color on television.
Right.
I don't think the NBA would go away with some. I don't know. Maybe Adam Silver would do that, but I don't think that there's a way to really, because of the whole historical context of it. I mean, everybody thinks about the All-Star game between Michael and Kobe and Michael's last game in the first
01.
year. Yeah, in the first year, we had this form, or the first year of the Kobe Bryant format, and even it really wasn't even bad until this year.
Right.
With this new format, maybe like you said, adding more money towards the charities might do it, but I think NBA players are pretty conscious. I'm sorry. I think next year they'll probably play a lot harder because they're looking at it too, like everybody's
this was a disappointment,
right? Everybody's saying you're taking the fans for granted. Even Stephen A. said it. These guys go harder in workouts that they do in the summer or that they do just over the All-Star. Yeah, exactly. Than they did in the All-Star game. So when you say that there's an injury risk, I mean you're not even going as hard as you do in practice. I don't. The guys never really, they didn't take injury risk into consideration the past couple of years with this new format. So I don't know why it would have changed this year. But yeah, it maybe go away with the skills challenge or something like that. But
right, and I did see a theory. The theory from a lot of people is that back in the day where we had Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, these guys played hard in the All-Star game every single year. And now the oldest player in the league is LeBron James. We know LeBron James, or in the All-Star game was LeBron James, and we know that he is for player empowerment. We know he is for resting and preserving your body for the big time moments. And for an All-Star weekend where a couple years ago he only played he only played the first quarter. Was that in Cleveland or was that? It might have been the year before. But I think that the theory is that since LeBron's kind of leading the charge, the players are following suit, and they're just, let me just go out there and put on a show rather than, I guess, play competitive basketball. But, I don't know. Like you said, this is kind of like the worst one I've probably ever seen. And these players do have social media. They do hear the noise. I think they will come back next year with a different level of intensity.
And, yeah, and I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
When you go to that LeBron, I know what you're talking about, especially for the regular season. But I feel like whenever I watch LeBron in the All-Star game, he always goes hard at least the first half. Yes. Whatever he always, like, even Sunday he started the game off, like he was really trying to win. I think when you go back to the guys like Kobe, Tim Duncan, all those guys who were making the All-Star game every single year, they knew what to do once they got into the game.
Right.
Now we're seeing a lot of, because the league has so much talent. There are guys who are first-time All-Stars, or it's only their second time being in the All-Star game, and they're 27, and the last time they were in it was when they were 23.
True Holiday.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of new mix of All-Stars. Like LeBron, that was his 19th All-Star game, so he knows what to and what not to do in All-Star game. But then you go to somebody like Damian Lillard's only been in it for 6 times, and he's 32, 33, which is crazy because it's Damian Lillard. So I think that because that the same players aren't making it every single year, there are a lot of players who are trying to, kind of figure out what to do in an All-Star game, and by the time they figured it out, they're not in the game anymore. So
right, and I mean, Giannis has been one of the biggest stars in the last couple of years to really just play at 110% the whole game.
Steph too,
right? And speaking of that, this year, aside from the game, I think it also just kind of sucked because I guess we didn't see a lot of the stars that we've been accustomed to seeing in games like this in the past. We got LeBron for a half, we got Giannis for a play or a possession. And then due to injuries, we didn't get KD, we didn't get Steph, in this game, and those are 2 top 5 players in the world, or pretty close to it. There's
Yeah.
players like Kawhi Leonard, who he just didn't play
He
enough
always plays
games.
hard too.
But he's Kawhi Leonard, right? We don't need to explain that. Anthony Davis, who kind of surprising he wasn't a reserve, but same thing with like James Harden. James Harden's been amazing all year. He's top 3 in assists. He used to average 30-point triple doubles, or pretty close to it. And there's a lot of stars like that we just didn't have this year. But I guess the last thing I want to say about the All-Star game is that halftime show.
Yeah, I turned it off.
It
was
Grammy
bad.
Award-winning halftime show. Obviously, I'm kidding. But the halftime show was terrible. Not that, much respect to these artists. They make beautiful music, but
Not for me, man. I'm sorry, but I couldn't vibe to the Burner Boy like Giannis and Bam and all of those guys were. It was. I mean, I didn't even give it a chance. If I'm being honest, I turned off.
Right.
I quit the stream I was watching before it even got to halftime. I was like, I'd rather go do something else and watch this halftime show. But I mean, I do that with anything usually other than the Super Bowl. So it's not saying that I just made a special occasion for this time. But when I saw the reviews and saw a few clips, I was glad that I made the same decision like usual.
yeah, no, like you said, I didn't really think about that. But the only Super Bowl or halftime show that we really watch is Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the only anticipated one. But it was a terrible halftime show. I mean, it was like an hour long too. So it went on forever, and it was like, let's just get back to the game. This was like when Common was announcing the players. It's cool, but let's just get to the game.
Yeah.
But then I guess that leads me to my next point. What was your favorite moment from this weekend? It could be the skills challenge. I'd question you. It could be the Rising Stars game. It could be DK Metcalf winning that. It could be the All-Star game or Jason Tatum. I know you're a fan. What was your favorite moment from this weekend?
My favorite moment is probably Mac McClung bringing a little bit of energy back to the dunk contest because people were ready to cancel it. It was funny because I think Trey Murphy went first, and Kenny Smith, he immediately said the dunk contest is officially better than last year. So, I'm glad Mac McClung said he's going to run it back. Hopefully this does launch his career, in some way or shape or form. He gets an opportunity. But I mean, yeah, I don't, the All-Star game, even though Jason Tatum and like Donovan Mitchell and all those guys had good games, they were playing against me out there. They were playing against me if I was getting paid to not play defense. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite moment from this weekend was seeing Carmelo posted another workout with Chris Brickley. He's trying to get signed to the league, but somebody signed Melo. He's on his, I guess, farewell tour probably. If he doesn't get signed this season, but somebody's got to sign him. He's like 200 points away from passing Shaq on the all-time scoring list. Let's get Melo on the team here for the rest of the year. But in all seriousness, Mac McClung, I mean, he's got to be the moment of the weekend. Some people believe he saved the All-Star dunk contest.
He saved All-Star weekend.
Right, at least Saturday night. I guess final thoughts is just, I guess I got one big burning question. What was worse, the halftime show or the skills challenge?
Oh man, the halftime show. Like I said, I couldn't sit through the halftime show if somebody paid me. So yeah, the halftime show was, and like you said, it was entirely too long. We were already watching a bad basketball game, so the fact that I'd rather watch the bad basketball game over what, I don't even know. I just know one of them, and that was Burner Boy, and I'd never listened to
right.
them in my life. But yeah, it was entirely too long. It was already a lackluster weekend.
So, right. And I mean, yeah, I got to agree with you there. Even though the Jazz, I never want to see Jordan Clarkson in an All-Star event probably again because he just doesn't care.
Yeah, and I do want to say one thing with that. I think Stephen A. said it. When it comes to guys, like the reason like people like Mac McClung and think that he did such a great job this weekend, not only because he put off some insane dunks, but I think Stephen A. Smith made a great point. He said that they brought somebody from the G League who they're not in, and they're still trying to make their way to the league. They still have something to prove, so they get somebody from the G League to just do something simple like a dunk contest. They asked the NBA players, "Do you want to do the dunk contest?" So it's kind of like. They're like, oh, I don't really want to do it. But then, you get a G-leaguer like Mac McClung to come up, and he's got something to prove. He wants to show the world that he's not just a G League, player, but he's a really good dunker, and he, belongs in the league. And I think that his competitiveness is what made the dunk contest between him and Trey Murphy better than the last few.
Right.
And I just think that, a lot of the players, they take, All-Star Weekend for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So it, it kind of reflects in their play.
In the product. Yeah, I mean, the last thing I got to say about All-Star Weekend is LeBron was 5-0 as a captain. He got his first loss. Hate to see it, but props to Giannis, props to Mac McClung, Damian Lillard, props to Jason Tatum for winning the All-Star Game MVP. And, it was a good All-Star game. It was a good All-Star game, but that is really going to do it for today's show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys like what you're listening to, we're going on about 40 minutes here, so if you made it this far, you obviously have been able to put up with us, so go ahead and support us down below. We've been growing like crazy. A lot of new people are seeing the channel. A lot of new people are viewing the channel, supporting the channel, so be one of those down below and support us. But any last thoughts? Any last thoughts about All-Star Weekend or the show, or maybe a preview for Thursday?
Thursday we might hit you with some. All I gotta say is for Thursday, everybody get your favorite NBA duos. Think of duos that you really liked in the league, and just keep them in mind.
Right, and we're not talking about Russell Westbrook in the backboard. No, I'm just joking.
We're not talking about Carmelo and accepting his role, but
that's for a different day. Let's not go that far. But that is going to do it for today's show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. We will see you guys on Thursday with some dynamic duos, let's say. But until then, stay happy, stay healthy. We're out.